Hello everybody, this is probably like my 20th return to the YouTube space. I don't know how else to call it at this point. Just living life, I guess. It's hard. It really is. I think the last time I made an actual video, I was in transition to my new place, which thankfully I have completed. And at this point, if I go back to making videos full time or going back to Cartoon Palooza stuff, I'll try. I tried to do some shorts every once in a while. Don't know if anybody noticed. A few things I noticed in the community tab. Just trying to stay active. Want to make sure people don't actually forget about me the same way I forget about it. I don't know. I kind of had to. That was a little corny. Listen, anyways, it's Christmas Eve, which is funny enough, actually, when I produced my first Cartoon Palooza review, Shark Tale, in fact, was made and uploaded on Christmas Eve in 2010, I would say. Yeah, 2010 coming into 2011. Actually had a whole series of videos, a top 5. I don't even know if they're still out there on the recorder I had at the time. I had 5 Christmas specials I ranked as my 5 at the time. But that's not what I'm talking about today. In fact, I recently saw a Christmas special from The Simpsons that, believe it or not, I found to be pretty good. It's called, and I got it on the Wikipedia up here because, listen, I'm not just going to completely wing it. I'm going to try to have some facts every once in a while. Oh, Come All Ye Faithful, a Darren Brown Christmas. Believe it or not, I didn't even know who this guy was. I thought he was a character created for the show. And then as I find out, he's an actual illusionist that they had as a guest star, which, there you go. When it comes to The Simpsons and guest stars, I would say that's when the series started to tank. In fact, why don't I go ahead and include that? Like most people, I'm pretty much in the same boat as most people when I could say that The Simpsons kind of went down after the 7th season when they started having a guest star every episode. That's when I felt like, personally, the show became less about the writing and the cultural impact it had and more or less just fodder for whatever guest star they could have. At that point, I already shipped over to Futurama, so it didn't really matter. But like I said, I figured I'd just talk about this episode or two because it's actually a 2-part episode. Because I actually thought it was pretty decent. But before I go into my full thoughts on that, just really glad that there are people still out there watching my videos. If you are checking this out for the first time, highly recommend that you subscribe. Plan to have a little bit more content coming your way. When that happens, how that happens, just trust the process. But feeling a little bit better to be making some videos. So yeah, I figured I'd talk about these 2-part episode of this new season, Disney Plus exclusive for for The Simpsons. Believe it or not, what I didn't realize watching this was that this was a part of the series. I thought this was one of those cringy shorts Disney Plus puts out with The Simpsons, where they take, a Disney property and they have The Simpsons interact with it. That's what it looked like when I was on Disney Plus. That's what it looked like. I went on Disney Plus and I saw the title card and I was like, yeah, great. It's another, Disney Plus thing. In fact, it looks so similar to the Family Guy one they had that I was just like, at this point, Disney's just doing whatever the hell they want with these characters. But, I watched a clip on Twitter showing the character Ned Flanders in a very interesting way, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that made me curious and want me to look into this. So a little bit of background. I'm going to go back and forth while talking about this with my little facts here, so you might see a couple cuts here and there. So this is the 778th and 779th episode of The Simpsons of 36 seasons, so go figure. And this is a Disney Plus exclusive. That's why I thought it was one of those cringy shorts. So the episode starts where a character, this Darren Brown guy, realizes that Springfield is one of the most miserable towns, when it comes to Christmas, which, funny enough, don't even realize this, but, outside of the holiday episodes, like the Halloween episodes in particular, The Simpsons do a pretty good job when it comes to celebrating Christmas. One of the first episodes of The Simpsons as a series was a Christmas special where they adopt Santa's little helper, and it's a good episode. Pretty sure when Bart gets an F, that's a pretty good episode too, back in the first season. You also had that one episode where Bart steals the video game, which is a classic episode too. So, believe it or not, when it comes to Christmas, The Simpsons kind of hit it well. But anyways, this illusionist tries to convince the town that, you know, Christmas is special. They had the return. I don't know if they've been using this character again. I'm going to look up this character's name again. So, funny enough, the character doesn't even show up in the Wikipedia. That's how, you know, no name of a character he is. But if you watch the previous season, he showed up in that one episode with Hank Scorpio. He gets a nice little redemption. He was a funny side character that showed up in earlier seasons. He shows up in this, where he gets hypnotized or he gets connived by this Darren Brown guy. And then you have Homer. Now this, of course, when it comes to the brain and the mind, you know, and it involves Homer Simpson, you know something's gonna go down. So what Darren Brown does, he tries to hypnotize Homer, quote unquote, tries to hypnotize him in probably the funniest way possible. I mean, I want you to think about how someone would hypnotize Homer. Just imagine it for 2 seconds, and it's exactly what you think it is. And he convinces him that he's Santa Claus, which, lo and behold, Homer doesn't snap out of it, and he actually believes he's Santa Claus, which leads to this A story, which then becomes the B story because it's a 2-part episode of him being a great gift giver, aka believing he's Santa Claus. Ralph Wiggum shows up as his little helper, which I think is really cool because early on in The Simpsons history, Ralph Wiggum was supposed to be Homer's son. Even the way they designed Ralph Wiggum was to look more like Homer as a child, and then they just ended up having him be Chief Wiggum's son. He actually plays a decent role in this episode when it comes to being Santa's elf. So he's got the classic Ralph Wiggum moments. Like, if anything, I'd go as far as to say that this is probably one of my favorite Ralph Wiggum episodes outside of that one episode where he and Lisa are in a play together, which is a pretty classic episode. But at some point, Homer realizes he gets snapped out of it, and then he realizes that he actually wants to continue being Santa, and I'm not going to give away too much, but I think it's a pretty funny way where he tries to capture that Christmas spirit again. But while this is going on, Ned Flanders has a crisis in his faith, and here's the thing, so I'm going to go into a little bit of spoilers here. At this point in the series, Ned Flanders loses 2 wives. We all know he loses Maude early on in the series, and then he also loses Edna Krabappel, who in real life passed away. When I found out about that, I was still making videos consistently. That was a huge deal. Like, everybody, you know, at that point, that was like one of the big losses for the series. So they incorporate that into his challenge in faith, which, you know, we get the term Flanderization when a show shows up for a really long time and a character is de-evolved. This is an opportunity for the character Ned Flanders to be reinvented and capture that spirit of what he originally had when he first started. Because early on in the show, Ned Flanders was this goody two-shows, but the thing is, he had his breaking moments. Like, one of my favorite moments in the earlier seasons is when his house collapses and he pretty much loses his mind, and that's when we learn about his backstory as to, like, what causes him to be such a good-natured person. To me, the way they work this into his character really makes sense, and it actually does stick to the original meaning of the character. My only issue, and this is my biggest gripe with the episode, is the fact that Paul Scheer is pretty much getting older, and you can tell. You know what, but I'll take that back, because I think it also does hype up the fact that Ned Flanders is growing older, so it's not nearly as bad. I'd say it's mostly bad for Marge, but I've had that issue even, you know, earlier seasons where the voice actress is clearly not the same character anymore. Even Bart to a certain degree. If anything, I noticed it was very interesting how Bart as a character is not nearly as pronounced. So, you know, in that way, I thought it was pretty interesting to see an episode really focused on Marge, Flanders, and Homer. Which to me, I feel like emphasizes what's so great about The Simpsons, especially in its heyday, is that it's other characters. It's not the Bart Simpson show. You know, if anything, you know, there was an early interview where Matt Groening mentioned how The Simpsons was envisioned as this version of the family that Leave It to Beaver character, who's like considered the bad boy. What if the show focused on that character? And you got to remember, it's all about those characters. So I like how they really focused on that. I mean, I really can't say anything, you know, new or groundbreaking. Like the animation itself, it's kind of current with like the current production of The Simpsons. I think because television animation has come a long way from the 80s, you can tell that the animators can have a little bit more versatility when it comes to certain motions and like, you know, certain details. Like there's a great bit in the beginning where the mayor has some very interesting facial animations that the earlier seasons probably wouldn't have been able to do because overseas, you know, which I think they probably still do. But like, you know, with today's technology, you could probably improve on that a little bit more. I mean, so overall, don't know if there's any other details I want to include. I did look up a few facts here. I did notice that the episode's director was inspired by her challenge in faith and her challenge in the Christmas spirit, which motivated her to work on this episode and, you know, use it for the character of Ned Flanders. So I think it's interesting how it kind of captures that spirit of what made The Simpsons great, which is, you know, really relating to something that most people deal with, which is, you know, when a lot of crap happens and things that seemed enjoyable before, things you do, you know, that were fun or things that you did because it kept you sane, after a while, they're going to lose their novelty and, you know, you get challenged. And then you ask yourself, why am I still doing this thing? Why am I still going to church? Why am I still writing these notes? Like at some point, you know, you're going to have that moment where you realize and lose a bit of faith in those things. And it's a matter of, you know, getting back into the spirit of things. I'll also say this too, and I'll maybe make this my final point, but Lisa Simpson as a character, you know, I think a lot of people joke about this currently, which is the fact that Lisa Simpson as a character kind of devolved as well too, where she was the voice of reason and then eventually she just became a know-it-all that's too good, too smart for her own good. She has a decent episode in this, and they even mention details when it comes to her change in faith when it comes to Buddhism, which is like an earlier season situation. And she has a pretty good moment in this episode. So, I mean, that's what my general thoughts are on this two-part episode of The Simpsons. Highly recommend that you check it out, especially, you know, on this current holiday season. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope there's more to come. Feel free to subscribe, you know, comment below. Let me know what you think. Just be civil, guys. Just don't be a dick. It's the holiday season. Just be nice. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and happy holidays.